Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome once again to our daily session on fiqh, Islamic rituals based on the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We had started yesterday the first aspects of the prayer and the conditions as well. Today we will be studying the wajib aspects of prayer, the incumbencies, the parts of the prayer that complete the fard aspects. Remember, if we miss out a condition of the prayer, if we miss out a fard of the prayer, then we have to repeat the entire prayer again. However, if we miss out a wajib aspect of the prayer, we do not need to repeat the whole prayer. If we miss it out accidentally and we remember later on, oh, I missed out a wajib aspect of prayer, whilst in prayer, what we do is, at the end of the prayer, we perform what we call the prostrations of forgetfulness, sujood sahw. But if someone deliberately misses out a wajib aspect, then in that case, they will need to repeat the entire prayer. So wajib is something that binds the prayer. It makes the prayer whole and complete. So, for example, Surah Al-Fatiha, the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha in salah, in prayer, that is wajib. So mere recitation of any 3 verses of the Quran, a minimum, that is fard. Reciting the Surah Al-Fatiha, that is wajib. That is wajib. So if somebody misses out accidentally, then they can perform sujood sahw at the end. But if they miss it out deliberately, then they will have to repeat the entire prayer. So some incumbencies, some wajib aspects of prayer we shall go through today, inshallah. So recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha, as I have mentioned before, this has to be done in the first 2 recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha is in every single rak'ah of every prayer. That is wajib. Adding a surah is in every single rak'ah of every prayer, except the 3rd and 4th rak'ahs of fard prayer. So if we are performing fard prayer in Fajr prayer, it's not going to be an issue because we only have 2 units. In the Zuhr prayer, the fard units of Zuhr prayer, we must recite Surah Fatiha plus a surah. Adding the surah is wajib in the first rak'ah and the second rak'ah, but in 3rd, 4th rak'ah we do not have to add the surahs. So likewise in Maghrib prayer, in the first and second rak'ah we have to recite Surah Fatiha plus a surah. That is wajib. But in the 3rd rak'ah we do not have to add a surah. But in every other prayer, nawafil, witr, sunnah, in every rak'ah we recite Surah Fatiha plus a surah. So that surah has to be a minimum of 3 ayat of the Quran, or 1 surah which is equal to 3 ayat of the Quran, or 1 long ayah which is equal to 3 ayat of the Quran. For example, we have Surah Al-Kawthar, that is the shortest surah of the Quran, so that will suffice, or Ayatul Kursi, which is longer than Surah Al-Kawthar, but even though it's only 1 ayah, that will suffice as well. Being collected and calm in every single position, that is wajib. So if somebody is standing position, then whilst they're standing, they have to be calm and collected. When they are in ruku position, they have to be calm and serene, and even in qawma, and then in sujood, and then in qada, and then in jalsa, and all the positions, we have to be in a state of tranquility and in peacefulness for at least the time of, or the duration of reciting 1 tasbih. At least the duration of reciting 1 tasbih. So we don't just get up from ruku and bang straight into sajda, or get from one sajda and straight into next sajda. No, sit, calm yourself, and then go into the next sajda. So that is wajib. The first sitting up to, as well as the recitation of the shahud in the prayers of the 4 or 3 units. So the first sitting is wajib, the last sitting is fard. So in the 2 rak'ah prayer, this first sitting and last sitting is the same, it is the last sitting, so it is fard. In the 3 and 4 rak'ah prayer, the first sitting, that's after 2 rak'ahs, sitting up to the extent of the shahud, that is wajib. So saying at-tahiyyatu lillahi was-salawatu, all that up to the end, Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu, up to there, it is wajib. So that is in the first sitting. The last sitting, that we know that it is fard. Reciting of the shahud in the last sitting So sitting the last sitting is fard, but reciting the tashahhud in the last sitting, that is wajib. The words of salutation twice at the end of prayer. So when we end the prayer, we end khuruj bi sun'ihi is fard. Leaving the prayer or ending the prayer in a proper intentional manner, that is fard. But saying the words of salutation, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, that is wajib. That is wajib. So recitation of the qunut in the witr prayer. So in the witr prayer, the third rakah, after the end of the third rakah recitation, the imam, or if you're praying on your own, say Allahu Akbar, raise your hands to the ears, bind them again, and then we recite the qunut. Some people call it dua qunut, and that is wajib. So recitation of the qunut is wajib. The Eid prayers have additional takbirs in them. Eid al-Fitr has 6 additional takbirs and Eid al-Adha has 6 additional takbirs. These additional takbirs are wajib. Okay, these additional takbirs are wajib. In prayers where the imam has to recite audibly, that is wajib for him to recite audibly. In prayers where it is wajib to remain silent or to recite silently, it is wajib upon the imam to recite silently. So, such as Fajr prayer, it is wajib upon the imam to recite audibly. And the 2 Eids, audibly. Jummah prayer, audibly. Taraweeh prayer, audibly. Witr prayer, audibly. In Ramadan, witr in Ramadan, not on your own, because that is performed silently. Maghrib prayer, Isha prayer. So wherever it is required for the imam to recite audibly, that recitation made audibly, that is wajib. Where it is required for the imam to recite silently, then that is wajib for him to recite silently. That is 9. Those are 9 wajibs that we have just gone through. The muqtadi, the one who is falling behind the imam, praying with the imam in congregation, it is wajib upon him to not recite anything whilst he is behind him. Okay, particularly Surah Al-Fatiha, we have some arguments regarding that, but it is wajib upon him in the Hanafi madhab to not recite anything when he is standing behind the imam, because the hadith is qira'atul imami qira'atun lahu. Whatever the imam recites, it is the recitation for him as well. When in sajda, when in prostration, placing the head on the ground, that is fard. But what parts do we place? It is the forehead and the nose together. So placing the forehead and the nose together when we are in sajda, that is wajib. That part is wajib. So Allahu Akbar are used for the word for the takbir tahrima. That is wajib as well. There are a number of sunnahs. These are the sunnah aspects of prayer we are going to go into. And there are a number of sunnahs in prayer. And we will quickly go through them. If you have any questions, you may ask at any moment. For men, raising of both hands up to the ears, that is sunnah for men. And for women, they raise their hands up to their shoulders. The follower must form the tahrima at the same time as the imam. So when the imam says Allahu Akbar, when the imam says Akbar, that is when the follower says Allah. So it's slightly behind, just a little bit, just one word behind the imam. It is sunnah, and to delay that, it is against the sunnah, which makes it makruh. To leave the fingers in their natural state and not to spread them apart in all the postures. So if somebody says Allahu Akbar, don't spread your fingers apart, don't clench them together. And likewise, when you bind them and bind your arms, and when you place them on your knees, keep them in the natural position all of the time. That is sunnah. And also what I mentioned yesterday, the men binding their hands below the navel, that is sunnah, and women just below the collarbone, like so. So that is sunnah for them. Recitation of the thana, that is sunnah. Thana is subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, and all that at the beginning. The pronunciation of ta'awudh, That is also a sunnah, which is A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, and pronunciation of tasmiyah at the beginning of every rak'ah. That tasmiyah is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So before Surah Al-Fatiha, in every unit, to say that inaudibly. In other words, so you can, nobody else can hear it. That is sunnah. Pronouncing Ameen for the Imam, the follower, the individual, for everybody, to say Ameen silently. Ameen silently, that is sunnah, not audibly. Pronouncing Sami Allahu liman hamida when coming up from the ruku to the qawma, to the standing position, the temporary standing position, and to say Sami Allahu liman hamida, that is sunnah. And if the Imam says Sami Allahu liman hamida, then everybody else says silently Rabbana lakal hamd, that is sunnah for them. And then saying the thana, ta'awud, tahmid, all of them inaudibly, it is sunnah. Keeping a balanced posture all of the time without bowing the head, especially when you go into ruku. You need to be absolutely flat. The Imam will say the takbir, the tasmih audibly, that is Allahu Akbar at the beginning, and all the other times when it says Allahu Akbar, that is sunnah for the Imam. And to also say Sami Allahu liman hamida and Salamu alaykum rahmatullah audibly in all prayers, that is sunnah for the Imam. To keep a space of 4 fingers between the feet when in standing position. So a lot of people make this mistake that sometimes they'll bring their feet too close. That's permissible for women, but not for men. For men, there has to be a space between the feet, and the space has to be roughly about 4 fingers, or roughly the width of one of your feet. Okay, we've seen some people who will spread their legs very, very far, like they're doing splits. That's not right. That is not so. It has to be comfortable. You need to be comfortable. So the comfortable position is when you're standing in a comfortable manner. So try and make sure that the space between your feet is equivalent to the width of one of your feet. So roughly about 4 fingers, maybe a little more, little less, depending on the width of people's feet. People's, have different size limbs as well. So not too wide and not too narrow. Pronouncing tasbih, that Subhana Rabbiyal Azim and Subhana Rabbiyal A'la in the bowing position, that is sunnah, and to be pronounced 3 times. Placing your hands on your knees during the bowing and keeping the fingers spread apart in the natural position, that is sunnah method of ruku. And to keep the back flat, this is for men, keep the back absolutely flat, like parallel to the ground, and your body has to be in like a right angle. For women, it's not. For women, they just move forward slightly and they place the fingertips on the top of their kneecaps. That is sufficient for them. And make the head parallel to the posterior when bowing. So your back and your front has to be level when you are in ruku position. And when you stand up, you have to be absolutely straight. No bends, twists, nothing like that. Need to be absolutely straight when standing up for the qawma. Sitting between the 2 prostrations. So when you do the first sajda, you sit up and then you do the second sajda. And that sitting should be the length of being able to say tasbih once, a minimum. Some hadiths have mentioned that Prophet ﷺ, the length of his sajda and him sitting between the 2 sajdas was the same. So the duration was the same. So placing both the knees and the hands, followed by the nose and then the forehead when stooping down for prostration. This sequence is reversed when rising up from prostration. So basically, when you go into sajda, this is the hadith. So when you go into sajda, you place the knees first, then your hands, then your nose and forehead. And then when you come up, you raise your forehead and nose, and then your hands, and then the knees. So in other words, that is the manner we have come to learn from sajda. For a man, separating his abdomen from his thighs, his elbows from his sides, and his forearms from the ground during prostration. So your forearms have to be lifted. They have to be away from the side, and your thighs and stomach have to be separate. In other words, they cannot be joined together. For a woman, it's the opposite. For women, they place their hands on the ground. They have their elbows right next to themselves, and the abdomen and thighs need to be touching each other. In other words, men, they spread out as much as they possibly can, and women, they crouch up as much as they possibly can. But men should not spread out when there is a risk or apprehension of disturbing someone who is praying next to you. So if there's someone praying next to you, like in the congregation, and you spread your arms out, you're obviously going to be disturbing them. They will not be able to perform their prostration properly. So in that case, it is best for you to crunch up a little bit and give more space to that person. Placing hands on the thighs when sitting between the two prostrations, and also during the shahud. So during the jalsa, and during the shahud, place both hands on the thighs. That is sunnah. And now another sunnah for a man is when sitting between the two sajdas and also in the shahud position, is that when he sits, he erects his right foot and toes should be bent facing towards the qibla. The rest of his foot should be erect, and his left foot should be placed on the ground, and he should be sitting on that foot. So the left foot is placed on the ground flat and sitting on it, and the right foot is erect with the toes bent and facing towards the qibla. Also, for the women, they have their legs out toward the right side and sitting on the left buttock. So women sit differently from men. During the tashahhud, to raise the finger when you say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Okay, when saying ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, to raise the finger, the index finger of the right hand when you say la ilaha. And the manner of doing this is that when you have your hands on your thighs like this. Okay, so when you say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, when you say la ilaha, you raise your finger, and illallah you place it back down again. And what you do is you make a fist, and then you release your right finger, the index finger of your right hand, and you say la ilaha illallah, and then you open up your hand again. Okay, that's to do with the right hand. And that is, so at the negation you raise your finger, and at the affirmation you bring it back down again and you open up your hand. Reciting Surah Al-Fatiha in the units after the first two units in obligatory prayers. So we've already mentioned that, to send blessings and salutation upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the last sitting. So when you say Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid, Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. And these are the salutations that are mentioned in the hadith. So these are salutations we'll perform in the ritual prayer in the last tashahhud, in the last sitting, and they are sunnah. To turn the head to the right and to the left during salam, that is sunnah. But saying the words of salam, they are wajib, and actually making it, that is for itself. To make the salutation, the imam intends. So when the imam is saying salam to the right, he is going to make intention of all the angels and jinn who are praying on this side, together with all the people who are praying behind him, and also to the right. And likewise, when he turns to the left, it says Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. With his intention are going to be all the people praying behind him again, and those to his left, and also all the angels and jinn that are praying on his left hand side. So it includes all of them. And when someone praying is on his own, then he is going to intend only the angels on his right and left sides respectively. The imam is to lower the voice slightly compared to the first salutation. So in the first salutation, the imam says salam slightly louder than the second one. So he will say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then the second one a bit lower, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So that is sunnah. And the masbuq, this is the latecomer, should complete his second salutation, so that he becomes certain that there is no prostration for error during upon. So what happens is that when the imam is leading prayer and someone comes and joins in late, so what he does is he waits at the back, whilst he is praying, and he waits for the imam to do salam one side and salam the other side. Once the imam has done perform salam both sides, that is when this person latecomer can stand up and complete his prayer, just in case the imam might have a sujood sahw to perform. Right here, we go on to the mustahab aspects, and I think we shall stop it there. In fact, I'm going to go to the mustahab aspects. Okay, we have just a little bit of time because it could be that we might not have a lesson tomorrow. So mustahab aspects, these are what you get extra reward for. during prayer, and they are that when a man does Allahu Akbar, when does takbir, he moves his hands out of his sleeves. So these hands should not be covered. So if you have long sleeves, make sure your hands are out of the sleeves when you say Allahu Akbar. And women don't have to do that. The worship, or when you are standing, we mentioned this before yesterday as well. So when somebody is standing, he should look at the place where he's going to prostrate. When he is in the bowing position, he looks at the space between his feet. When he is in the sitting position, he looks between his lap. And when performing the salutations, he looks to his right shoulder and then to his left shoulder. So it is also mustahab to perform more tasbihs than 3. So you can do 3, 5. It is better to do them in an odd number: 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, something like that. Okay, whatever you can. If someone begins to yawn, so try and suppress your yawn or your cough or your hiccups or whatever as much as you possibly can. It's mustahab to do that. But if it's difficult, then and it cannot happen, then that's fine as well. So if the people are present with the imam, they should stand as close as possible to the imam, close to the prayer niche, the mihrab. Okay, and the person who is saying the iqamah, he should say hayya al falah. When he says hayya al falah, that is when people should stand up and make the rows for the prayer. So he's going to say the iqamah when he reaches the words hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya al falah, hayya al falah. The people stand up and they make the rows. And also when the imam comes in, as soon as the imam comes in, if people have performed their prayers and they're waiting for the imam, they have performed their sunnahs and everything. As soon as the imam comes in, people should stand up if they're not praying. And if the imam comes from the back, they should start standing up from the back as he walks past the rows. If he comes in from the front, they can all stand up together. Or if he comes in from the side, they can stand up together as well. But if he comes from the back, then they should stand up. People should stand up row by row as he goes past them. And that is mustahab for that. So we shall stop there, inshallah. And if we have an opportunity, we shall go on to the performance of prayer tomorrow. Otherwise, it seems because of the month of Ramadan and other responsibilities and duties and other things going along, it might be difficult for us to maintain these classes. But we shall see. We shall see. You never know. We might be able to put 1 or 2 of these classes in here and there anyway. So we are not going to stick to any particular schedule. And if we have time, inshallah, we shall add a class here and there. But nothing planned as such. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our attendance here today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to live our lives according to the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. May Allah give us the ability to know the Islamic rituals and perform them regularly in order to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to be good people, to be good to ourselves and to be to our families and good to other people as well. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.